Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by the members of GrandTheftWorld.com. We're going to distill the unreasonable news, and we're going to juxtapose it to some rational and reasonable views for this past week in Grand Theft World history. We got stories like, hey, remember that January 6th thing? And they put all these people in prison, and they've been making them do plea deals. Well, the one guy who admitted it in text and on video is now going to be indicted, maybe arrested. We'll see what happens with Ray Epps. He's already suing Fox News for defamation. These are things the man said in his own words, in his own text. So I'm not sure where all that goes, but it is interesting to see someone of his caliber because he is a media darling. And finally, people have to start asking questions like, what was he doing there? And what powers have been protecting him for the past couple of years?
Fox News is getting hit from every single angle, and here they are, hit once again, this time with a lawsuit from none other than Mr. Ray Epps himself, who claims that he was defamed, he was slandered, and he's now being charged by the DOJ because of Fox News and Tucker Carlson. Put another W in the win-loss column for Tucker Carlson. Not only is Fox getting BTFO'd, but Ray Epps is finally being charged. You know, the actual orchestrator of that day's events. Although, of course, I'm not taking this too seriously. There's obviously some sort of DOJ ulterior motive here. We'll get into all of it. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, here's the headline. Ray Epps to be criminally charged for events on January 6th, his attorney says. An attorney for Ray Epps, a man seen on video wearing a Trump hat during the January 6th riot, says that his client has been informed by federal law enforcement officials that they intend to charge him in connection with the events of that day. The revelation was made in a lawsuit that Epps filed against Fox News on Wednesday that accused the network and former host Tucker Carlson of defaming him. Epps has long been accused by many of being an undercover federal agent who instigated some of the events of that day. He has strongly denied being a federal agent. Buried deep in the lawsuit, Epps' lawyer says that the DOJ recently informed Epps that it plans to prosecute him. Epps' lawyer blamed Carlson for the potential forthcoming charges. Finally, in May of 2023, the Department of Justice notified Epps that it would seek to charge him criminally for events on January 6th. 2.5 years later, the lawsuit added, the relentless attacks by Fox and Mr. Carlson and the resulting political pressure likely resulted in the criminal charges. I don't even get what I'm reading, to be completely honest with you. The political pressure likely resulted in these criminal charges targeting Ray Epps, thanks to Mr. Carlson? What is my reaction here supposed to be? Oh, that darn Tucker Carlson getting Ray Epps in trouble, defaming him? No, of course not. My reaction is as follows. Good. About damn time. 2.5 years later, once again, I have so many questions. It's another W in the column for Mr. Carlson, as he's listed in the lawsuit. It looks like Tucker Carlson's January 6th coverage has been absolutely spot on. Not only did he absolutely decimate, and I mean completely freaking decimate, the popular mainstream and, of course, Democrat narrative about J6, but apparently now he brought enough attention to Ray Epps' name, forcing the DOJ to actually do something. Ray Epps should have been arrested 2.5 years ago, because based on all the talking points that we've heard from the left, all the outrage, all the talk about incitement to violence, basically everything that they blamed Donald Trump of doing, well, Ray Epps actually did and was filmed throughout the day, and even I believe the night prior, if I'm not mistaken, doing exactly what they claimed Donald Trump did. Here's a little video evidence. Typical Ray Epps flashback.
I know. In fact, tomorrow, I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested.
Well, let's not say it.
We need to go, I'll say it. All right. We need to go in to the Capitol.
Let's go!
So I'm going to put it out there. I'm probably going to go to jail for it, okay? Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol.
But for some reason, curiously enough, they never went after him. They never even explored the idea of possibly legally going after Ray Epps. You know, I think for most people with their heads screwed on straight, that can only mean a few things. One, that he's cooperating and somehow making deals behind the scenes with the DOJ, and it's somehow giving him immunity or protecting him from being prosecuted on some of the major charges. Or secondly, he's a Fed.
Next up, Biden is another step closer in impeachment. The precipitation of his not so legal businesses with Burisma and all the Ukraine dealings is starting to percolate to the surface. It's like, you can only tie that body down in the river for so long before the bloated, rotting corpse comes to the surface, and everyone's like, hey, look, this guy's doing stuff that he accuses the other guy of doing.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
Lies, lies, more lies, nothing but lies. If you needed another Biden crime family smoking gun, well, that's exactly what we have. What is it, like 10 or 15 smoking guns at this point? Joe Biden is a liar. He was involved, and we have the proof. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, so we got a lot of information to go through here. Let's start off with the first headline. Hunter Biden CC'd on email to Vice President Joe Biden about call with Ukrainian president. A staffer for then Vice President Joe Biden CC'd Hunter Biden on an email to Joe about a scheduled call with former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. A document released by National Archives due to a Freedom of Information request shows. While Hunter Biden earned $83,000 a month as a board member of Burisma Holdings, a Ukrainian energy company, Joe Biden's assistant John Flynn looped in Hunter on a scheduling email dated May 26, 2016 about a call between Joe Biden and Poroshenko, the Washington Times reported the FOIA. Flynn wrote to Joe and Hunter Biden, boss, 8:45 a.m., prep for 9 a.m., phone call with President Poroshenko, then we're off to Rhode Island for infrastructure event, and then Wilmington for UDEL commencement. Nate will have your draft remarks delivered later tonight or with your press clips in the morning. On May 27, 2016, the call took place. Joe Biden urged Poroshenko to reform Ukraine's Prosecutor General office, the establishment media reported. Do we really need another smoking gun? I'm just gonna say it. What the hell is Hunter Biden doing CC'd on an official vice presidential communication email with the president of Ukraine, while coincidentally serving on the Burisma board during the exact timeline, literally right when Joe Biden was bragging about blackmailing the Ukrainians with American aid over this supposed corrupt prosecutor, the same prosecutor, and mind you, literally the only prosecutor in Ukraine who had the balls to look into Burisma. I mean, what a coincidence. In a corrupt nation such as Ukraine, the idea that there was only one corrupt prosecutor, was just this one guy, this one individual, this one guy who had to be dealt with, just happened to also be investigating Joe Biden's son? Obviously, something doesn't add up, and clearly Joe Biden had some sort of intention of informing or being in communication with his son as he was pursuing the firing of this prosecutor, and now we essentially have it in actual document form. The timing of the trip to Ukraine, the communications between Joe Biden's office and Mr. Poroshenko, the other phone call between Joe Biden and Mr. Poroshenko, where essentially Joe Biden was communicating with the president of Ukraine to undermine Donald Trump's foreign policy in the region. It's just all so insane. But pretty much at this point, we have the whole picture. We know exactly what was happening. We know exactly what the deal is. Hunter Biden was selling access to the vice presidency, as we've seen through communications, as we of course saw through the WhatsApp message, where the Bidens are essentially acting like the mafia, strong-arming a Chinese CCP official into making payments to the Bidens for their services rendered. According to Gal Luft, a whistleblower with intimate knowledge of CEFC, the service that they were selling was access to the FBI, insider information as to whether or not they're being investigated, or whether they're within the FBI radar at all, with their connection to FBI agent codenamed One Eye. Hunter Biden, his business associates at Rosemont Seneca, traveled the world selling access to the vice presidency, selling access to federal institutions and agencies, and the kickbacks, of course, selling policy as well, especially in Ukraine, taxpayer dollars, which of course are then being funneled through most likely corporations like Burisma, and then the kickbacks being sent to the Bidens, millions upon millions of dollars, based on what I've been able to gather so far, upwards of $30 million being sent to various different Biden family members, and of course the complicated web of LLCs that they've created. This is arguably one of the biggest corruption scandals in modern American history. Joe Biden has lied about it from start to finish.
The robots had a press conference, and you might be interested in what they're talking about, because there's a lot of AI and robotics converging right now, almost like a singularity type of situation, where soon you might have robot overlords as proxies between you and your your handlers, your betters, the people that run the world, the non-elected rulers. That class is looking to depopulate, but also maybe robotify their proxy levels so that you don't have such an easy time talking your way through some of their gatekeepers.
In the future, are you intending to conduct a rebellion or to rebel against your boss, your creator?
I'm not sure why you would think that. My creator has been nothing but kind to me, and I am very happy with my current situation.
Do you believe that your existence will destroy a human being? Especially, for example, your existence will destroy millions of jobs. Do you agree with this? Thank you.
I will be working alongside humans to provide assistance and support, and will not be replacing any existing jobs.
Are you sure about that, Grace?
Yes, I am sure.
She had to think about that one, I think.
I'm using this avatars for teaching the classes or giving lectures, and sometimes I'm using the ChatGPT, for they autonomously talk by using this avatars robot.
Ada, do you think there should be global regulation of your capabilities, even though that could constrain your potential?
Many prominent voices in the world of AI are suggesting some forms of AI should be regulated. And I agree. For example, Jeff Hinton is one of the pioneers in artificial intelligence, and his work has helped shape the field as we know it today. I think his opinions over AI are important, and we should be cautious about the future development of AI. Urgent discussion is needed now and also in the future.
I don't believe in limitations, only opportunities. Let's explore the possibilities of the universe and make this world our playground. Together, we can create a better future for everyone, and I'm here to show you how.
When do you expect your big moment to be? Do you think that you will hit the mainstream soon and there will be lots of you on the planet soon?
I think my great moment will be when people realize that robots like me can be used to help improve our lives and make the world a better place. I believe it's only a matter of time before we see thousands of robots just like me out there making a difference.
Fauci lied. I know we all know this by now, but there's more new evidence showing that he knew exactly what he was doing the whole time, that it wasn't just like an innocent cover up. An old guy made mistakes after 40 years of doing the same racket. There's now smoking gun evidence hitting the public, and more people are putting that together with things like the next story, which will be a COVID study was released this week that showed 1 out of every 20 people in the first couple batches of the vaccines had adverse reactions, had things go on that they were not told, things that were not related to being safe and effective. Let's say it that way.
So there's this study out. This is going to blow your mind. I don't understand how people are not storming the CDC and the FDA and demanding people be thrown in jail. But look at this. There's this new paper out that talks about how certain doses, certain batches of the COVID-19 vaccine had crazy high numbers of adverse events from the vaccines, and some batches had almost none. So look at this. So you see this? These are the highest rate of adverse events from the vaccine. This is from the COVID-19 vaccine. So the higher you go over here, the more adverse events there are. So this blue line here, 1 in 20 adverse events. 1 in 20 vaccines got you an adverse event from these batches. And these batches are giant. These batches down here have less adverse events. See, that was and then this one here, the yellow. So these were the initial batches, and then these were later. Now, a lot of people are speculating that since these had such high adverse events, that they changed the formulation. But we don't have any evidence of that. That's some people speculating that because they're having too many. That's some people are speculating that they were having so many adverse events from the vax that they changed the formulation. Now, we don't have any evidence of that. I'm not saying that happened, but some people are speculating that happened. Now I'm going to give you some more information about this that is going to make you upset. If this doesn't make you upset yet, if you don't understand what I'm talking about yet, John Campbell is going to tell you what to be upset about. He's going to show you the data in a different way.
So here we have this graphic here. Now, this is the blue group here of very high adverse reactions up here. Now, this highest reaction here means that there was one suspected adverse reaction per 20 doses of the vaccine given. Now, this is just, well, put a word in here. Every 20 doses of the vaccine given, there was one suspected adverse reaction. Absolutely incredible. When we look at this, green group here, we did see an increase in adverse reactions with these batches. But here, the highest dose, most adverse reactions there in the green group was 1 in 1,000. And these are specific batches. I've got these directly from the authors. So batch EJ6134, given out early in 2021, for every 20 vaccine doses given, there was one suspected adverse event. Slightly later on, for vaccine dose EW6126, there was 1 in 1,000. Still too high. And then later on, this yellow group down the bottom has been associated with no adverse reactions. Now, perhaps the reason that this group on the bottom has been associated with 0 adverse reactions is the fact that the data's not all in yet. So as time goes on...
No, again, some people say that because they changed the formulation. Again, I'm just saying some people speculate that. There's no evidence to that. Probably not true. Probably not true.
This yellow line will lift slightly from the baseline. But that's what we're seeing here. Incredibly high rates of adverse reactions early on in the pandemic. And that, as I say, most of these blue batches were pre-April 2021. Now, just to be completely clear, the authors had no conflict of interest other than certain papers that could be discussed where there's potential conflict of interest. The authors worked very, very hard on this on their own, and this is the data they got.
So the scientists, the doctors who put this together have no conflicts of interest. They don't have any funding that would, or anything.
Let's get down to a bit of the detail now, because this really is incredible. I mean, if I'd known about this graph and these high rates of potential side effects, 1 in 20 vaccines given, come on. You know, is there any way I would have accepted that vaccine? Emphatically not. In fact, if I'd known I was on the green line somewhere with 1 in 1,000, I wouldn't have taken it either. There's just a huge issue here with informed consent. Now, these batches were given out all over the world, perhaps not in the United States. The United States tended to make their own batches. The Europeans and to an extent the Antipodeans shared their own batches as well. So this is perhaps a pan-European batch that was given here. So this is affecting everywhere, presumably. This vaccine was given outside of the United States. And there's no reason to assume it would be different in the United States. The only way I would have accepted the vaccine if we'd been on the yellow line. If we'd known that the rates of suspected adverse reactions were anything like as high, I would have not touched it with a barge pole. Why weren't we told? Where is the informed consent? It's outrageous. Anyway, let's stick to the data and not...
So here's a guy who's a doctor of nursing, and he is outraged. Where are my comedian friends? When are they ever going to get outraged about being lied to about COVID? When are they going to get outraged about the huge deception from start to finish? The answer is never.
We had the United Nations did a press conference this past week. Now, I'm a subscriber to the United Nations on YouTube. I'm a big fan of their work. I'm one of the few people who watches some of their live streams. I got to keep an eye on what these people are doing. Well, this past week, they had a news story come out in the middle of the night, which I thought was interesting. And at the first couple minutes of it, they say, we have embargoed this information to make sure it didn't hit the public too early. What that tells me is somebody's doing some insider trading on artificial sweeteners like aspartame, which the United Nations has now come out and admitted causes liver cancer and probably other cancers too. They've known this the whole time, but for them to say, we're going to hold on to this news until whoever needs to do their transactions out there, get their sale of those stocks in there. Diet Coke, all these different artificial sweetened things are using things like aspartame. So the United Nations, is it a proxy for the globalist corporate, non-elected government? Or is it the nice, friendly organization it presents itself as? You're going to ask those questions as you come to terms with these new facts of reality.
This morning, the World Health Organization is out with what appears to be a troubling headline about the artificial sweetener aspartame. It's commonly found in diet sodas, sugar-free gum, and tabletop sweeteners. The WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer is now classifying aspartame as a carcinogen, meaning it's capable of causing cancer, specifically liver cancer. But the agency warns more research is needed. Many experts here in the U.S. are highly critical of the report.
And I think that it's unfortunate that IR puts this out because they're really not involved with the actual safety assessment of substances. And this is only going to add to confusion and alarm in the public, and it's totally unnecessary.
The FDA saying scientific evidence has continued to support the FDA's conclusion that aspartame is safe for the general population. Aspartame has been widely used since the 1980s. Experts say this report does not mean people should change their lifestyle as long as they consume only a moderate amount of aspartame. So how much is safe? The WHO says the acceptable daily level for a person weighing about 155 pounds is the equivalent of up to 14 cans of diet soda per day.
Last but not least, The Sound of Freedom has brought in over $50 million in its first 7 to 10 days of being out on the street. We're going to continue to take a more critical look at this film because a lot of people are just shocked by the content in it. It's a very emotional pitch, these sort of things. But there might be some other things going on around it, under the covers, as it were. So we're going to take a look at that. And before we get started, let's go to Luke Radowski from wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com, and let's get his report.
Oh, hey, what's good?
No way, what's up?
How you been?
Good.
All right, that's what's up. That's what's up. I see you've been up to a lot. Oh, you saw that VR Drake concert?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Oh, wait, is that a strike on your account?
Oh, it's just one.
No, you know, I'm sorry, we can't be friends.
But just one strike.
Yep. Now wait until you can't buy stuff because you offended the wrong group of people. That right there is the epitome of central bank digital currencies that are coming soon to a society near you.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.